Investors are returning to the property market as the number of first home buyers is winding down. And is it cheaper to buy or rent?
Anne Flaherty, economist at REA Group, joins us with all of the answers. Anne, great to see you.
Great to see you guys.
So can you tell us what evidence is there that investors are actually coming back?
Yeah, so on the realestate.com.au website, we track inquiry of our buyers by buyer type. And we saw investor inquiry collapse mid last year, down to 11% of the total. But over the last few months, we've steadily seen the proportion of inquiry coming from investors rise. Now, the ABS released their latest lending figures earlier this week. And what we saw from those figures was a 13% jump over March in loans going to investors. Now, this was the largest jump in investor loans since back in 2003.
What about first home buyers? How are they faring in the market right now?
Yeah, so on the flip side, we did see new loan commitments to first home buyers decrease by 3% over March. Now, it's not a strong decline, but if we look at the inquiry data on realestate.com.au, it kind of gives us an insight in what's likely to happen into the future. And we've been seeing inquiries as a proportion to these buyers steadily decline.
And what do you think is causing the winding back of first home buyers?
I think that the speed of the market at the moment has a lot to do with it. So typically first home buyers prefer a slower moving market. Also, prices are rising very rapidly at the moment, and the challenge for many of these buyers is pulling together that 20% deposit, which is becoming increasingly difficult.
What about the rent versus buy situation, Anne?
Yes, so it's an interesting one. If you think about across Australia, in every state except for Victoria and New South Wales, it's by far cheaper to buy than rent at the moment. Now, this analysis takes into account all of those costs associated with buying and renting. And you can see from this map that we've got in every state except for Vic and SA, over 80% of dwellings, that's units and houses, are cheaper to buy than rent.
Yeah, it's very interesting indeed. So in terms of where the best places are, like would you say sort of capital cities or regional areas? We've certainly seen a huge push for people moving to regional areas from the city.
Yes, we have, definitely. And those regional areas are still, by and large, cheaper to buy in than rent. On the flip side, the further you move into the city, particularly Melbourne and Sydney, it becomes far more expensive to buy than rent. So suburbs like Toorak in Melbourne or Vaucluse in Sydney, it's substantially cheaper to rent than it is to buy.
Yeah, that affordability is the big thing, isn't it? So it's cheaper to buy than rent, but boy, oh boy, the price is just going through the roof.
Yes, yes. Well, the interesting thing about these figures is that if it is cheaper to buy in many places than rent, that's a sign that prices are still likely to continue growing as well.
And do you think we'll see more government initiatives like we have been mentioning here on Sky News today about the announcement of the new home scheme to help more than 125,000 single parents into the property market?
Well, I think that the hope is that more will be done to help these first home buyers and other people who need that leg up. You know, the reality is that interest rates are very low at the moment and they're predicted to remain low for some time. So there are many people out there who can afford the loan repayments. The question is, how do we give them that leg up to even get that loan in the first place?
Yeah, that's it. A lot of people still remain frustrated that banks are making it difficult for them. So let's hope that the whole thing eases from here on in. Thanks so much for that.
My pleasure.